Welcome back, everybody. This is Brian Marshall, host of the C-Suite Sherpa Podcast, where we focus on spotlighting great resources for the C-Suite. Speaking of great resources, we have a great resource with us today, someone who I'm lucky enough to call a friend, Bill Gammon. Bill's the founder of Gammon and Associates. Bill, welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you here today.
Thank you, Brian. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Tell you a little bit about Bill, and then I'm going to have Bill explain what he does and who he works with. Bill is a guy who's focused on helping companies build high performance strategies involving tactics, communication. Bill's leveraging decades of leadership and mentorship training and experience, and he's bringing that so that he can help his clients achieve their goals. So, Bill, tell me about your business. Tell me about who you work with, and give me an example of maybe the kinds of companies you work with and what you do for them.
Sure, Brian. I work with people who find themselves in a position that they need some help in this or that. They're normally small business people or entrepreneurs from a million to $100 million. And for whatever reason, the owner isn't getting out of that business what he started that business to get. He finds himself stuck in the middle, involved in every decision, and working 60, 80, or more hours every week and ruining his life with those he loves and being guilty about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they hear about me. We talk. We go deep on their goals, not just surface, to find out exactly where they are and what's going right and what isn't, and where they want to go. And then we co-create together the roadmap that'll get them there fastest, most profitably, and with the most freedom. That's what they started the business for to begin with. So they can enjoy things they love and life like they want to live it.
Isn't it amazing, Bill, that so many great business people start a business or maybe they take over a business and they all tell us the same thing. I want to be a business owner because I want the freedom to do what I want. And then they somehow build a virtual prison where they end up working more for less money. I know I was the worst boss I ever had with some of the businesses I ran. I forced myself to work hours that I would have never asked anyone else to work. So, how do you get owners to wake up and realize that they're doing that? I'm curious from your perspective, how do you do that?
Well, you help them discover how they put themselves there and how they really lost the focus on what was really important in their life. And once they see those things, they start to open their mind and change the mindset such that they become the architect of the business rather than the person in the middle that has to make all the decisions and everyone else has to wait for them to do it. So they learn that when they empower others, they get more power and more profits and more business value in doing so. And the more they're implemented, the quicker you get from here to there.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple of things. I think something we should dive into for a little bit is business owners are all about getting things done. Sometimes business owners fall into this trap of thinking lots of activity equates to progress. And what I find is that one of the biggest obstacles that the clients that I work with have is they tell themselves, well, no one can do it as well as I can. It's faster if I do it than if I try to teach somebody. I really can't trust people to get it done. I'm probably better off just doing it myself. And these are the kinds of stories we tell ourselves in an attempt to hold on to the perception of control. And what's interesting about that is that becomes the thing. It's like you watch an old Western movie and they take a rope and throw it over the branch of a tree and a horse won't move because they've got a bridle on and they've got a rope attached to it and they think that they're stuck. And the same thing with business owners. We tell ourselves that we can't take a vacation. If I left the business for more than a week, the business would collapse. And we actually wear that like a badge of courage. So how do you change the perception? How do you change the mindset of an owner or help them see that that's actually getting in the way?
to empower their people.
Yeah.
And once you do, you also show them how not to hold them accountable, but to hold them capable. Because once they're capable, they then assume more responsibility for every task.
So what's been one of the hardest parts about building your business from your perspective as an owner, as a founder? What's been the hardest part for you?
I think the hardest part is sometimes winnowing out those who really aren't a good fit. Because people will tell you they'll do this or that. But then it's like they buy the book and they put it on the shelf after they read the first chapter, instead of read it cover to cover and devour the parts that would really change their.
Do you see the same challenge with clients of yours where they're doing that with their clients? They're seeing what's possible as opposed to what's real, and they're taking on clients that they shouldn't have taken. I'm curious if you're seeing that across the clients you work with.
Well, if you should be upping your floor in any business for your clientele and who you're working with, what you need to run your business and achieve your goals, you're spending time in an activity that's not going to get you where you want to go. It's almost like you're confusing activity for accomplishment.
Yeah.
You're helping people, but are they the right people? And are you making the biggest impact on the most lives?
Yeah, a lot of times when I work with my clients, I remind them something I learned, which is a choice to take a bad client is actually a choice to not take on another good client.
Oh,
You know,
yes.
I was in real estate. There was a seasoned landlord because I took some time off and, I took a sabbatical when I was 35, bought some apartment buildings and became a landlord. And the guy that I bought the buildings from, he says, remember, in this business, a vacant apartment is a treat compared to a bad tenant. And I thought about that because my goal was to have the building is 100% occupied, fully capitalized, making lots of money. Just be careful. Sometimes taking on a client and taking on a new tenant that's a bad tenant is way worse than actually having a vacant apartment for a few months and waiting for the right tenant. And I've always applied that to my business that every time I take a client and I'm choosing to allocate precious resources to someone. So the question is, are they worthy? Is this somebody that's actually worth my time? Do I care more about their business than they do? And you alluded to that before, where sometimes you take on a client and then you got to fight with them, and it seems like you care more than they do. And so how do you go through the process of figuring out whether somebody's ready so that you can only take on clients that are a good fit?
One of my biggest gifts has been given to me by many of my coaches throughout life. And one way back when said, Bill, you're better off turning your clients into friends than your friends into clients. Because when you take on your friends, not all of them are going to fit right. And so I've taken to heart a lot of the wisdom of people that had walked a journey before they helped me on mine. And I've been fortunate to have a multitude of wonderful coaches help me get everything I own. And now I'm paying it forward by helping it others.
Yeah, I want to amplify something you just said because you gave me an aha moment. It's to turn your clients into friends is better than trying to turn your friends into clients. And we've
Yes.
all heard the old business and pleasure don't mix, you shouldn't be friends with your clients. But actually, I think the problem is when we go to friends and family and we somehow think they're going to become our clients, that's a great way to run a friendship. Some of my best friends in the world now were people that started off as clients and we built friendships.
Yep.
Built on trust. That's a really interesting perspective. If you're listening to this and you're thinking there's a good takeaway, to me, that's a great takeaway. Thanks for sharing that.
I try to drop gold everywhere I go. So
Well,
I'm helping everybody I touch, Brian.
well, well done. That was a nugget. So tell me, so we've got about 5 minutes left, and I want to make sure we cover a couple of things. So what's been the biggest challenge for you moving forward? What's your biggest challenge that you're facing as a business?
Well, the world today moves a lot faster than it did when I started in business.
Yeah.
it moves at the speed of our minds. And our minds are the best computer that was ever created.
Yeah.
And so we don't really challenge ourselves enough. So keeping up with the challenges means accepting the challenges and working on them until you master them at a time. And when you do the one thing, like it's written in that book, it seems to get your focus more laser-like and more productive in the market that we need to compete in today. And that means using tools like AI as a tool,
Right.
not as a crutch, because if you sit in a wheelchair instead of exercising, you're going to lose your legs. And we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
You're always good enough. And one of the things I find is a lot of clients think they aren't good enough yet.
Yeah. And to add to that, a lot of us as business owners tell ourselves that we're a small business owner, or, we get uncomfortable with the idea of success. I mean, a lot of people that I know fail ultimately because they don't see themselves as a successful business owner, or they've been told for years that it's nearly impossible to crack the $10 million mark, or whatever the belief system is. That's what's holding them back. And, so a lot of what we do, as being an advisor to these business owners, is help them uncover their limiting beliefs, help them uncover the things that are holding them back. And by the way, knowing it and doing it, two different things. I suffer from it. My partners call me out on it. I mean, we do it for each other as friends. And so I find that's one of the biggest things we can offer as value to our clients, is the ability to help them look in a mirror and see the stuff that they are convinced is true that's not true. As a business owner, I could never be on a vacation that's more than like 3 days, because the business would collapse without me. As long as you believe that's true, you will always find a reason to never take a vacation with your family, because duty calls, right? We wear it like a badge of honor. And the reality is it's not true. It's a choice.
The more I can help business owners take a 3-month vacation rather than a 3-day vacation,
Yeah.
the more that owner is going to be ready for the next chapter in their life going forward. Because that means they've already built a staff and entrusted and empowered them with some of the decisions they trusted no one else to make before.
Yeah.
And the more they can create the company of people working together and going in the same direction as a team, the quicker and further that business will go.
So I'm going to wrap this part of the interview up with the final question. So we do a lot of discussion around business owners that are at the end of their tenure. They're looking to exit, whether it's through succession, next generation, outright sale, ESOP, whatever the mechanism is. The reality is all of us as business owners are going to exit our business, right? It's either going to be on our own plan and power, or feet first out the door, dying at our desk. I think there's a huge opportunity that you've mentioned, and I'm curious how you feel about this. I think that there's a huge opportunity for us to not only focus on baby boomers who are going to exit, but what about the people buying the business? What about the next generation that's coming in and buying the business? Because what I'm seeing is people aren't starting businesses from scratch as much as they're buying existing businesses and leapfrogging that first 2 years, which can be brutal for a new business. Do you do any work with the new generation, Gen X, or Gen Y or Gen Z, I guess would be the generation now that's up and coming? Do you do any work with those generations, helping them take the business and not have to need someone like us 30 years from now? Curious if you're doing any of that.
I'm open to that, and I've done a little of it. Here's the thing. If we look 5 years down the road, those folks are going to own a bigger slice of the businesses than the current people are owning. And that's going to keep going. And they have the ability to take a company and move it further because it has more resources when they start than a startup has.
Right.
it already has a lot of people, processes, and procedures in addition to the money and the equipment that you would start a business with. It's grown and it's more current. And so that person has a leg up. And I think showing them the leg up and how to work on that is even a bigger magnifying glass for that legacy than it would have been for the other guy, because like machines, we all have parts and they wear out. And so one day we aren't going to be here anymore.
Mm.
And so during the time that we are here, we have that finite time that we don't know whether it's tomorrow, next month, or 10 years, or 25 years from now. The younger guy, by the difference in age, should have more, but not necessarily.
Yeah, and the
So
hard part of this, Bill, sorry I cut you off. You made me think about something. The hard part about this is that we always hear failure is a great teacher.
it is.
Personal failure, your own failure is the most expensive teacher, but sometimes people need to fail in order to learn. I haven't done a lot of working with the younger generation, working with that next generation. I have a belief system that keeps me from doing that. And that belief is they haven't screwed up enough to appreciate what we're talking about. Do you see that as an obstacle? You see that as something that we have to figure out how to overcome?
It may be an obstacle for some and not for others because their mindsets are different. It depends on how they were socialized. It depends on how they grew up, and it depends on what experience and education they've put themselves through up to the point, because it takes all of it. You don't go in blind and win.
And I guess, the idea there is that no two founders are created equal. No two business owners are equal. Someone who has a lot of experience doesn't mean they know how to do it right. They may have a learning disability and they may be doing the wrong stuff over and over again, which is by definition what a lot of entrepreneurs are, is people that are unreasonable, people who are optimists, who do things that typically don't work, expecting them to work, which is why being an entrepreneur founder is it's a frustrating job. It's a frustrating career path if you look at it that way. But then there are people that actually are smart enough to learn from other people's mistakes. I guess that's who we're looking for, is people that are looking for the wisdom without having to pay the price of learning. So I think that's a great place for us to end. So Bill, anything else about your business we didn't talk about that you want to make sure people know?
I think that what I've learned is wise people help you get there sooner.
Yeah.
And helping people become wise helps those that aren't wise yet get you further. I think lifetime learning plus putting strong people in every position on your team
Right.
creates champions. And
Yeah.
champions need practice and need coaches. And that's one thing that some business people fight because of quote unquote price without seeing the value they really bring to the table.
Wise words. I appreciate that. So let's do this. Let's pivot. I want to do something a little bit fun. We call it the lightning round. I'm going to ask you some quick, sometimes silly questions, whatever comes to mind. There are no wrong answers. If you're ready to go, I'm ready. All right, here we go. Easy question. Do you prefer coffee or tea?
I drink coffee. My wife drinks tea.
Okay. How about cats or dogs?
I've raised cats. We have dogs today. My wife has a cis dog.
There you go. The zombie apocalypse just broke out. You're at home. What weapon are you going to grab? You can only grab one.
That's a question I don't know how to fight because I don't believe in a zombie apocalypse.
There you go. If you can have one superpower and you can choose what that superpower is, what would it be?
To understand what my customer really wants.
Okay. Do you have a favorite movie or a streaming series that you watch, something you'd recommend to people, something fun, something entertaining?
Well, not really, but we have from time to time watched some different series together. Unfortunately, sometimes that ends faster than.
That's my problem. I start watching something, I lose interest in 10 minutes and I'm doing something else. I can't sit still. So how about a book? I'm guessing you probably have one or two books that you'd recommend. Pick a book that you'd recommend to people. It doesn't have to be business. It could be any kind of book.
Well, apart from the Bible, the best book I've recommended to friends for many years now is 17 Lies That Are Holding You Back and the Truth That'll Set You Free.
That's a good one. So last two questions, bucket list. A bucket list item that you've already accomplished in your life.
I'm a go for the passion play.
Okay, cool.
My wife and I want to ride the train across Canada.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I heard there's a new Orient Express train that you can take, and there's also one that goes across from East Coast to West Coast. Those are cool. That's a great one. So hopefully you get figure out a way to get that done. So Bill, we're out of time. I really appreciate you being on the podcast. One last thing, folks, I've known Bill for a bit now. If you're looking for an advisor, if you're looking for somebody to help guide you through that process of exiting your business someday, knowing that all of us have to exit, I highly recommend Bill. Give him a call. He's honest. He's a good man. He'll tell you the truth. You may not like what he has to say, but he's going to be honest with you. So, Bill, if people want to reach out to you and have a discussion with you, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
My website is gammonassociates.net.
Okay.
I'm also on LinkedIn, Facebook, and some other sites. You can go to my website and book some time with me on my nickel.
Awesome.
To really discover how we might fit together, or it just won't work.
Great. So we'll put your website, your LinkedIn profile out there. People can reach out to you. It'll be in the show notes. So if you're watching this video, check the show notes below. All of Bill's contact information will be there. And again, folks, encourage you to reach out to Bill. He's not going to pressure you. It's going to be two people having a conversation, just like this podcast. So, Bill, thanks again for being here. Really appreciate it. Wish we had more time to dive into your wealth of experience, but I appreciate you being on the podcast, and it's been good having you.
Been a pleasure being here.
Same to you, Bill.
Bye-bye.